So good evening. Welcome to General Committee for December 10th. And our meeting's happening at 6 p.m. tonight. As you know, we will begin council as soon as our IT team are ready after the meeting. And I think that we need a nod from the clerk's office to the IT team to us to be able to continue through. So we'll be beginning immediately after the General Committee meeting. Before we get into the consent agenda and go through the formal, I'm just going to start with I'm not feeling well. Okay, my tolerance is low, which probably makes me intolerable. So I want to apologize in advance, and I want to ask for the grace this evening if I'm discombobulated at any point. But appreciate everyone putting all the work into the budget and all the work into the Performing Arts Center and all of the other things that we're going to be dealing with this evening. I'm just warning you, just call me out if I'm going in a wrong direction or spinning in circles, okay? The meeting's being held in person electronically in accordance with the Municipal Act. I would like to welcome back our student mayor, Sarah Anish. Welcome back again this evening. Sarah and I are both sick, so we get to be around each other, which is great. And she's representing Steele Street Public Elementary School in Barrie's northeast end. The consent agenda, it's the first item, and for consent items, I'll read out the title associated with the recommended motions printed on the agenda. Members of General Committee may ask that an item be held to discuss it further. If an item is not held, the motion is deemed to be approved on consent. No further discussion of the item will take place at the General Committee meeting, and the recommended motions will go forward to the next City Council meeting for consideration. We'll come back to do the, I'll jump into actually, there's only one, so I'll jump into the last Executive Committee meeting. We had updates from Mr. Schmidt as Mr. Hughes was not available. Those included both the different facilities that we're looking at as a city, but also included an update on some of the social services and the emergency act being put in place. And so I think that was pretty widely reported afterwards, which is a good thing. So that was the, by and large, that meeting. So we'll go into the motions out of the meeting, which are EC1, 25G226, the referred to General Committee meeting on October 29th, the four-way stop at Pennville and McIntyre. That's approved on consent. EC2 is the illuminated display at City Hall for Remembrance Day, and that's approved on consent. We're going to go into staff reports. CAM 003-25. This is the Barrie-Collingwood Railway update and opportunities.
Hold, please.
That's held by Deputy Mayor Thompson. DEV 045-25, the Municipal Names Registry, additional name. It's approved on consent. DEV 046-25, the review of the left turn movement at Ann Street North and Sunnidale Road.
Hold, please.
That's held by Councillor Corser. DEV 047-25, no parking anytime, Golden Meadow Road between Taylor and Crimson Ridge.
Hold, please.
That's held by Councillor Hamilton. FAC 007-25, the Barrie Performing Arts Center Design Development Advancement.
Hold, please.
That's held by Councillor Kungle. FAC 008-25, the Wastewater Innovation Center Delegated Authority to Lease Property. That's approved on consent. Okay, so we will go back to the beginning here, to the first item that was held, which is the Barrie-Collingwood Railway update and opportunities. And Deputy Mayor, I think you have that motion, and I'd like to speak to it as well.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'll put the motion on the floor as printed and delete paragraph 1 and replace it with the following. That the Chief Administration Officer be delegated authority to have staff engage consultation to undertake a comprehensive review, valuation, and assessment of the city municipality investment asset including but not limited to the Barrie-Collingwood rail, with an upset limit of $500,000 to be funded from the tax stabilization reserve. That the consultant provide a report back to General Committee with their findings.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Does anyone could have the wording just, you have it written in front of you or no? Oh, no, that's not you, that's me. It's in an email. I just don't have it sitting in front of me. Perfect. Okay, I just want to make sure that you probably don't want it back now. Would you like to speak to it before?
You know what, Mayor Nuttall, I know that you had some comments, so I'll give the floor up to you.
Thank you. The City of Barrie staff have come forward and said, let's look at the railway and let's look at, what can be done in order for it to have a future here, and does it have a future here, and what are the expenses and what are the opportunities and all of the fun stuff that make up a business case. And in conversations with the deputy mayor and with the CAO, I think that I kind of landed on a position where I would like a fulsome engagement to look at all of our assets and to come back. I think there's, we in this term have certainly not done a gut check on everything that we've owned to date. And it's really important we do that. Everyone goes in and asks the question to their banker at some point in their lives, okay, so where am I at and where do I want to go and who do I want to be and how do I want to get there? And we just haven't done that. And when you think about the incredible work that's been done by the team at City Hall, like our staff have managed expenses, and that's allowed us to do a whole bunch of things related to more reserve money. I think the last number we saw was, what was the last number for reserve? It was 480 or something like that.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, 473 million is projected at the end of 2025.
Perfect. So 473 million at the end of 2025. We started with $300 million in 2022. On top of that, we have all of these different things that we've owned. We let go of one of them, which was the airport, to the county. So I think at some point, I know we have a great board of directors for City of Barrie, great council, but I think at some point we just need to go out and say, can somebody help us create a plan here? What does it look like over the years? What's the valuation in everything we own? What are the opportunities? What are the liabilities we're not paying attention to? And just do a full audit of ourselves. And when you think about it, I think we're putting $500,000 in the motion. What's in front of me? I don't know why I'm pointing at you. There's $500,000 that we're asking for just on our liquid cash and investments. You're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 0.1%. When you include everything else, it's probably 0.000 something. And we have incredible staff and we've got a great council, but I'm not sure we have the expertise to get to the bottom of what our entire financial picture looks like today and how we can position ourselves going forward. So I know that's a lot to say, but I think it's necessary at this point.
Yeah, thank you for that. Through you, well, just a question actually to the mover of the motion or amendment. My brain is a little, my brain's a little fuzzy like yours tonight. Staff, this 500, that's $500,000. Does staff not have the ability to bring that forward in a report?
Thank you for the question through you, Mayor Nuttall. It's for a consultant and everything to do a thorough. Staff have done everything they could, and I believe that they've looked at it, that they'll need an outside body to truly give us a wholesome report back to council.
Okay, so that came from staff. So thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to you on the comment. Just a question. When I heard you speaking in kind of broader scopes, I'm still relating it back to the motion positioned around rail. And I didn't know when you talk about kind of assets and going a little bit broader on opportunities, if this would include things like both functioning and non-functioning rail. And I can't help but think about informal, I'll call them informal conversations we've had around the rail down by the new YMCA location and proximity, and if that could be used for active transportation, and how we connect movability around non-motorized vehicles. And so I'm assuming that would be in scope if you're going broader, and it's not just this rail, but all rail assets.
So I think the first step, and this is my opinion, Mr. CEO, step in at any point, okay? What we're asking for on the rail specifically is, what does the plan look like that makes us want to be in this long term? Okay, and I happen to believe there is a future for rail, but what does the actual plan look like? How do we get from where we are to where we need to be? And I think it'll look at all of our assets that we own at that point, because those tracks are assets at this point. And they act like a liability on the operating side, but they are an asset. And if they're no longer needed, then we can have those conversations about, like, what do we do next? But I think the first step is to get the information back on the rail service and all of what we have, so that we can make a business decision to say, okay, this either makes sense, this piece of rail here, or not, and this spur makes sense or this one doesn't, and we can then go from there. Mr. CEO, would you say that's a
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Kungle, I would just add, for Council's benefit, when we speak about assets, I would encourage Council to sort of broaden their mind. This direction is not related simply to rail, but as a municipality, many of our assets, many of our investments are in highly regulated or legislatively controlled areas. And frankly, we need to bring in some expertise to understand what is the value, what are the pitfalls, what are the obstacles, and are there business cases that are out there that we haven't considered in many years that we want to bring back to Council. So I would just encourage Council that I envision this direction as broader than just rail, but I think it built on the rail idea, which is go off and build your business case, consult with other stakeholders and potentially funding partners, and then come back to Council with what that could look like. And I think what we're suggesting here is, with some additional scope and some additional funding, we would broaden that and look at other assets and report back to Council on the opportunities.
Thank you, CEO Pros. And I don't have any more questions, but I'm taking that as kind of in scope, and out of that will come opportunities for a value, maybe proposition, but that won't be a missed opportunity around that space in the South End. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate it. Sorry, Councillor Reitman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The amendment talks about municipal investment assets and looking at them. Besides the railway, what other things are we, do we have a list of them, or is there something? I'm just curious. I'm assuming that it would be our investment in Electra for one thing, but are there others?
Last night there was an approval with regards to Peel Region and the water and wastewater assets and what's going to happen going forward. I think that we need to have a fulsome review of what that means to the City of Barrie. What is the valuation? There is a value there. How's it going to be managed? And what that looks like going forward. That's the one that comes top of mind right away. But really, what we're giving the CAO the opportunity to do is go and ask what makes sense and what doesn't. We have no idea what's going to come back. And I don't remember the last time that we had, quite frankly, I don't remember the last time we had the assets to go and want to do this work, right? So in many ways, it's the success that leads to, okay, you've got to ask yourself the question, where should we be? Where shouldn't we be? And, how do these things benefit the community or not? And there's real value in everything we have. Maybe some others would find better value in it. I look to Innisfil, they probably find some real value in the trains, right? And having the railway. But we haven't had the conversation, I don't believe, that they can get involved in that. So I don't want to speculate. I'm just throwing the ideas out there of what I think our conversation should be, and having somebody do a full financial plan for us. And I don't know who's going to do the full financial plan. We own so many different assets that you're probably looking at like banks or the Deloittes of the world, or those types of organizations that have all the expertise in one place to be able to bring it all together. Sorry, Councillor Hampton.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Nettle. I'm in support of this, but I just wanted to speak to it because today when we talked earlier a little bit about this, it was hard for me to swallow the $500,000 on consultants. I'm usually not a fan of doing that, considering the expertise that we have in staff. But when I thought about it after a little while, I mean, the implications or the scope of these assets is huge, right? And in understanding the depth and breadth is going to have significant implications for our long-term financial planning. So for me, when you said the budget, when you think of like the 0.0013%, I think is where we landed of the total budget of these assets, is where the $500,000. I mean, it's small. It sounds large, and I think for the public watching to think, here goes council spending another $500,000 on consultants. I understand that, and I think all of us around the table, that's why we're asking these questions. But if we look at the assets like rail, like the water, wastewater, like Electra, I mean, this is tons of money that we're talking about, and it will have significant applications. I think this is fantastic that you brought this forward for us, Deputy Mayor Thompson, to bring this forward. I mean, this is exactly what the city, in my opinion, needs to be doing and thinking long term. And not many councils do this, right? Everyone's thinking in 4-year election cycles. This is really setting up the city for long-term financial success, and I think it's extremely prudent of us to do it. Not undermining any of the staff. I think the expertise that is needed to come in here and really do a thorough review of all the assets, and thank you, Mr. Prowse, for clarifying that it's not just about the rail, I think is the best way to go and the best way to do it. So again, fully support. I think thank you for bringing this forward, and I understand we're probably all going to get questions from public on this because it's never great to say we're spending money on consultants, but in this case, I think the benefit, the long-term benefit for the city is going to be significant. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nettle. We had the conversation. I thought it was a lot of money. I'm not a huge fan of consultants, but when you consider the hundreds of millions of dollars of assets that the city has, this is money well spent that will be able to move the city forward in a more positive financial manner for decades to come. And I guess the only question I do have, though, through you to the CAO, what would be your expected turnaround time of this report back, or would the report back potentially be in pieces? Because obviously some of these assets that they're potentially going to be reviewing are quite substantive. And obviously, just because we've only got a year left in this term, would you anticipate that this is going to be coming back during this term, or would this be something that would float into the following term?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harvey. Councillor Harvey, I think it'll come back in sections. I don't want to say pieces, but I think council should envision a fairly quick turnaround, I think, on initial analysis. And I think that will inform us as to whether there is value in going deeper. So we have an upset limit here, and I know council is always sensitive around the amounts. The reality is in these spaces, city staff don't have the expertise and an ability to provide analysis as to market value and those types of things. So while we have very talented teams here, the reality is this is an expertise you have to outsource. You can't do it in-house. So I would expect the reports will come back separately. But I think what you will see is they will come back sort of in stages, which is we'll come back with, there's some meat on the bone, we're going to go further, or this is a dead end and there's no opportunity. And I would expect all of that likely to be returned to you before your summer recess for sure.
Great, thank you. And obviously we have full faith that you're going to be overseeing this and ensuring that there isn't any dollars spent that don't necessarily need to be spent, because obviously the upset amount that we're approving here today is quite substantial. So I definitely do approve this and have full faith in this moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Sorry. Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nettle. Quick comment and then a quick question. I like the example you gave us about the percentages, because to put into context for people who have their retirement, that kind of stuff managed, like wealth management, they pay 1% to 2% per year usually. And you know, when we're dealing with fractions of even a percentage point, I think people expect council to be as prudent with the public assets as they are with their own. So now my quick question to staff is, I know I had moved an item for discussion over a year and a half ago regarding the rail spur, specifically for the purpose of the fairgrounds. I think I know the answer, I just want to get clarity. Obviously this report, because it's already identified in page 6, but the scope of the initial report without the amendment captures that item for discussion. Is that correct?
Through your mail letter to Councilor Morales, yeah, we were going to look at the whole, wherever there's physical track. So the original intention was to look at wherever there's metal rails that we own, we were going to be looking at those.
Okay, perfect. So the only reason I'm bringing this up, Mayor Nettle, is it does affect, I guess, the amendment. I'm supportive of the amendment of the greater scope, but I also don't want to lose track of that initial one. It doesn't mean I don't want to look at the greater one, but I got quite a bit of feedback from members of the public, stakeholders outside Barrie that said, like, this is super innovative. Like, where are we going with this? Even the media followed up with me a couple of times saying, hey, this is really interesting. Where's it going? So I love that we're going more macro, but I don't want to lose track of that, because while the market right now is very different, now is the time to be looking at these things. So when the market does pick up, we go, this critical piece of land is ready. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Appreciate it. Councillor Corser.
Thank you. Just with more information that's come across the table, I just wanted to ask a follow-up question regarding the the ceiling of $500,000. So what we're saying is when we receive, which we're assuming we'll receive an initial report, at that time, we can make the decision to move forward with spending further.
Well, I think the answer is we don't know what it's going to cost, but the CAO will go out and number one, our own bank probably needs to be involved, our own staff needs to be involved, and then finding whoever it is that should be providing that type of full scope advice. It may be $100,000 for the whole thing. It's unlikely, but if it's going over that 500, the CAO is going to have to come back, right? So this is to give them an upset limit of where they can go and then go from there. Your mic.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So if it comes back and like Mr. Prowse mentioned that if we'll see if it's worth expanding upon, at that point we can have, maybe if it isn't, we can have a discussion on what we're going to do with what money we're going to invest going forward in this project. Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, thank you.
If it's going outside scope, which is $500K, we have to approve it.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Awesome. Any other questions or comments from members of committee? I'm seeing none. I just want to remind of the first night we had, I don't know if everyone remembers, we went to the sandbox. We had kind of a meet and greet with our staff team. Council was there as well. And the start of, I quoted the start, well, I didn't quote it, I put in my own words, start of the Winston Churchill book that says, one of the problems with our democracies is that we plan it out in the terms of our elections. And at that time for Winston Churchill, it was 5-year elections. And he said, you look at those who've moved society the furthest, to the Romans, and the Romans planned over hundreds of years, not over 5 years. So if we can start looking in the idea of 10 and 20 and 30 years out, we're going to be in much better shape. And I think that hopefully, Mr. Prowse, you and your team can come back with some pretty good long-term financial planning done with both our staff and with our external consultants, so that we can know we're on sure footing. And there'll be a lot of folks in the future who are thankful if we do this right. And a lot unhappy if we do it wrong. So let's make sure we get it right. With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? It carries. The motion is amended. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries. We'll move on with Councillor Corser. You held the review of left turn movement at Ann Street North and Sunnidale Road.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a few questions for staff regarding this project. I guess through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Ms. Banfield. This is a really big change at this intersection. How will this be communicated to residents as this is moving forward?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser. So certainly there would be, if this gets approved, there would be signage. There's anytime there's new signage, it's flagged that it's new. At the same token, we can also use the video message boards that you see around the city to highlight that there's a change in the traffic patterns in this area.
Okay, thank you. And I got a few follow-ups because it's a big thing. Is this the only choice that we have moving forward on this project? Because it is as this comes out and people start to notice this, I imagine that we'll be hearing a lot about it in the area. So was there any feasible things that we could have done to change this without blocking the left-hand turn? Is there anything considered in future that we could mitigate the stop of the left-hand turn, changes in the intersection? Is that a feasible thing?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser. So staff definitely did look, when we were directed to take a look at this, we did look at all sorts of different options, if there was any sort of other options that were available. And this one was the one that seemed keeping the existing infrastructure, like the existing intersection land, and as it is, this was the one that we felt was the safest and the best way to move forward at this time.
Yeah, I remember a resident had contacted me about the safety of this intersection, and I reached out to yourself in traffic and said, hey, and I remember it was coming back of, wow, this is quite the intersection. We need to take a second look at this. And so I'm just wondering, is this intersection, is there some kind of traffic book guideline where this is in a legal intersection, or it's something that legally needs to be changed because of the issues in it?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser. So when staff took a look at it, it's not that it's illegal, it's that there was obviously issues, and when staff examined how traffic was moving through that area, there is, if you look on kind of the staff report, you'll see on, I believe it's the last page, where an ideally designed intersection and the spacing that you would have to be able to safely make those moves, this intersection in this configuration just doesn't have it. So this is actually a pretty unique situation that, as I said, can be resolved by restricting that left turn movement.
It's amazing how this kind of went so long without having proper, and sorry, is there any consideration in the future about making definitive changes of that intersection so that it can be brought into alignment?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser, anytime staff make a change like this, obviously we do some research on the intersection. When we're asked to look at it, we make these recommendations. Staff will continue to monitor. We also will work with Barrie Police and have them enforce the area, and we'll just kind of basically monitor to see how it's working. If through those monitoring endeavors, if it looks like perhaps something else needs to be done, then staff would come back to council at that time.
Okay, thank you. And also, I'm assuming that staff will be monitoring side streets and residential areas for overflow, speeding, because there's concerns that traffic might be taking a simpler route as opposed to having to navigate that intersection.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser, yes, we look at all of those impacts as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. And just listening to the councillor and the concerns with the intersection and such a big change, I wonder if the councillor would take a friendly that would have staff look into the viability of a roundabout with some of the provincial funding that's been promised for traffic calming measures, to see if the area would allow it. I know it's more like a Y than it is an X. So it is a little bit of a, but if staff could maybe look at that as well when after implementing the sign as a ongoing.
Through your Mayor Nuttall, to the Deputy Mayor. So certainly in terms of any sort of provincial funding, staff did have the understanding that we would take a look at what funding is received by the City of Barrie and how we can best maximize it. So we absolutely would be looking at kind of all of these aspects. I don't necessarily think an amendment is needed, because that is definitely what staff is going to be doing whenever we have that crystallized amount. We'll definitely look at across the city for improvements.
Sorry, I just want to interject before we go. I'm not sure if we've fully shared this with council yet, but so we're all on the same page here. There's, I think, 445,000 that's come as an interim amount from the province of Ontario. Has that been circulated to council? No, okay. I think that I said I would write an email on that a week ago and didn't, so that's a me thing. So we've already received, or at least a promissory letter, allocating the amount, an amount from the province with relation to traffic calming measures. And so I think we put $500,000 in this year's budget for traffic calming, and then there's another 440 to 445,000. And it says it's an interim amount. There'll be more coming. So those are good news stories.
So maybe just to follow up and understanding, and I would never get in the way of staff doing the studies already, and there's probably more pressing intersections or areas that were already deemed to receive that funding. I was just thinking more of a study, like to see if it's even viable at that intersection, just based on the square area of the intersection. I'm just a little bit concerned moving forward by having no left coming off Sunnidale, with the announcement of the boundary adjustment and having more residents and stuff like that. Just Sunnydale might become more of a used road. So if staff could just look to see if it was even viable, and if so, report to council, and then the funding could be discussed at that time.
Yeah, thank you. Through the mayor to deputy mayor, thank you for that, because there is a lot of concerns of traffic flow coming down Ann Street as well. So that is an intersection that will become of greater interest. It's of interest now, but it'll become a greater interest as time goes on. And there's a lot of foot traffic at that intersection, and I'm assuming that staff have kind of kept that in mind with these changes going forward. I imagine that they'll know a left-hand turn would be actually safer for pedestrians in that intersection.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser, that's correct.
Wow, lots of big changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Corser. Any other questions or comments on this? Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. As someone who's dealt with interesting intersections like that, and specifically roundabouts, I would take the friendly, Councillor Corser. It will just, I can't promise, but it might help it materialize sooner than later, because otherwise it's a macro analysis of the intersections instead of like see if that one works. But on that, just the subject, whether you take the friendly or not, a quick clarification for council, and again, I've learned this the difficult way. There's a big difference between roundabouts and traffic circles. So for example, at Country Lane, I had proposed roundabouts because we all just look at that and go, okay, we need a circle in the middle and the traffic to do that. But the technical definition of a roundabout, I had staff and they did some good work on this years ago, and they would come back and say, okay, we would need to buy 2 houses per corner, and like they're thinking like, think of like the Park Place ones or the Collingwood ones. The technical language, because we want to direct staff properly, we can, they can't kind of read our minds or our intent, is traffic circles. So according to the transportation guideline, the Canadian one, and also if you look at the ones in New York City and all those, it's traffic circles that are done, and those are the ones that you might find in Midtown Toronto, where like between Eglinton and all these major roads, there's just like a little circle and really like narrows it down and you make it move around. So I just want to have some clarity, because I don't want, for example, in that one, there might not be enough land to do a roundabout, but the literal interpretation of the emails I got years ago were, well, that's what you asked for. I'm like, okay, so I'm just pivoting on the language that some of that could be traffic circles.
Thank you for that, Councilor Morales. Again, I just wanted to follow up with staff that there would be consideration coming forward in that intersection as discussed at council as well, for maybe some mitigating things in the future, especially with federal funding, or sorry, provincial funding coming down.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser, perhaps if you wanted to provide extra direction, it could just be that staff look at intersection improvements that may include traffic circles or roundabouts, or just leave it at that.
I'm just going to interject here. Like, we're talking about an intersection. We have experts who do intersections. Ms. Bayfield, I'm sure you can pass along the traffic circle and, now I forget, roundabout, says the English guy. to our staff, and then they can come back and say, like, put the options in front of you, right? Because I don't want to be responsible for an intersection that's already a problem going in a bad way.
Yeah, especially considering that the intersection is a very busy intersection that is just going to get busier over time. So just to clarify, maybe with staff of the clerk, that at this point I would I need to put an amendment forward to have that come back, or is that something staff could actually do for me?
Excuse me, through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser. Staff can definitely just look into it for you because it seems like it's part of a larger scope of work that they are already doing.
Okay, thank you. I'll just let that lie and we'll see what the future brings on that intersection. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask if there's any other comments or questions from members of council, committee. Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries. We're going to go to, can't read my own writing, Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, and through your Mayor Nuttall, I'd like to put forward a motion that the staff report DEV 04725 regarding no parking anytime Golden Meadow Road between Taylor Drive and Crimson Ridge Road be referred back to staff for further review. And I'm happy to speak to that briefly.
Go ahead.
First of all, thank you to staff for putting together the report. I've been talking to staff on this particular stretch of road. Golden Meadow, for those of you that aren't aware, is a major road sort of leading to Algonquin Ridge School. It's heavily trafficked, both with cars and pedestrians. Speeding has been a constant concern there. Sight vision and just a worry of the number of kids that are in the neighborhood walking to school or riding their bikes to school. So I appreciate the report that came back, but just given in light of the fact we're getting some funding from the province for additional speed safety measures and the worry about the unintended consequence of removing parking that might have on then in worsening the speeds, right? Because you're in a sense it's widening the road. So I want to take a bit of time on this one and just make sure that we get it right. I've had some great conversations with staff on this, and I feel like we're heading in a better direction. So I'm going to refer it back. We'll take some conversations offline and just make sure that we are doing the right thing here that is going to satisfy the majority of residents.
Thank you, Councillor. And that's your word I remember. So thank you for bringing that forward. Any other questions or comments with regards to the item? Seeing none, all those in favor of the referral back to staff? It's done. We couldn't debate it anyways because it was a referral motion. So thank you for following the rules better than I did. We're going to go on to FAC 007-25. That's the Barrie Performing Arts Centre Design Development Advancement. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor, can you please, oh no, Councillor Congo, can you please put it on the floor?
Thank you. I'd like to put the item on the floor.
Thank you, and I'm going to go over to somebody for a video. Look at that. Thank you so much. So folks, this is just a walkthrough of what the Performing Arts Centre is going to be. While you see the spear catcher there, it's actually between the road and the facility, so that would be right on Lakeshore. Going inside, I think there's been a couple of updates that Mr. Hughes will be able to walk you through. On the left-hand side there, as you're looking into this portion, this is the smaller of the two spaces for the arts. We've got in here the ability to do both dinner and normal seating for whatever type of event it is. The goal is to make this a people place. So you can see there's going to be some form of coffee shop and snack area that'll be open all day. There's also a restaurant that will be going in here as well. As you can see, people are dining and seated at this point. And it's a beautiful view. As you go outside, you're going to be a bit of a ghost right now and go through the glass. You'll see that the portion between the lake and the facility, it is actually an outdoor stage as well, and we can fit 5,000 people in that space as well. You'll now be taken, I believe, if I'm going on right memory, we'll be taken right into the largest performing art space. Person's just a slow walker. We'll get there. Yeah, it was. Yes. And 100%, the wonderful art along the way. So this is going to be our new Performing Arts Center, and the main venue. All of these seats will go into the ground, which will allow us to have obviously performance for the performing arts, to have speakers, etc., but also allow for convention space right through. I'm going to ask. That's from the waterfront. The goal is to keep it as low as possible. We don't want it creating too much of a break of our eyes. But as you can see, it's going to be a beautiful facility that I believe is attracting the right elements downtown, and a place that our folks have been begging to have for a very, 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 very long time. I think all council got an email from Marshall the other day, and he says it's 50 years. I'm 40 years old, so I can't confirm that, but he believes it's around 50 years that we've been talking about this facility. Now, I want to take it head on. There's an increase in cost, and the increase in cost is about $10 million. We have projected $65 million for the actual build and $10 million to prepare the land for it. What's come back is that it's going to be about $10 million greater than we had anticipated. Councillor Harvey, I know this is something you spoke to last time. It doesn't include the building of the other 5,000 square feet, but it does include everything getting roughed in. Maybe Mr. Hughes, if after I finish speaking, if you can kind of give an update on some of those small design changes that have come forward. So the bill is $85 million. The bill when we took office was $167.5 million. So we're saving just under half based on what had been projected previously. There's been a request, and I think it's important that we say this publicly, because we've had a meeting with the Arts Alliance, a number of them, but definitely, what was it, 2 weeks ago, Chuck, I think? Something like that? Time flies when you're having fun. 3 weeks ago, there was a number of requests that were in that meeting. Councillor Rietma was also present. One of the requests was with regards to better storage than we had proposed inside of the facility, so that all of the groups that were using it, or the main ones, were able to leave some of their equipment there. In some cases, it's really important, is what I learned, and I'm speaking on something I know nothing about, okay? So don't take my word for it, ask somebody who knows what they're talking about. But what I gathered was some of these drums need to be in there for like half a day or a day in advance, just to climatize, to be able to be tuned properly, to be able to then be used in the venue. And some of the other equipment's the same. So it was designed with a place for the grand piano, storage for the grand piano, but it wasn't designed anticipating that the groups would have space as well. Am I accurate here? Okay. So that's one, and I'm going to let Mr. Pugh speak to that after. Two is the 5,000 square foot space. In the report, it was actually 2,200 square feet. And they've come back with a design where they can do the 5,000 square feet. Think about it like this. It's $1,000 a square foot, okay? And if you start adding in IT-related stuff, and it's more than that, okay? So there is an opportunity, if we don't decide to include that, which would move the price from 85 to 90 million, ish. I really like, if you'd said less than that, that would be great. But ish, that is an option before council. And then the other piece was with the Barrie Film Festival, being able to have the proper screens, etc., built in so that the viewings can take place there, which is not a big issue at all. We can rough it in. We might even be able to find a way to pay for the stuff. I don't think that's not a $10 million item. That's a part of the facility. So As it stands, I'm going to go over to the storage and the 5,000 square foot and go from there. Mr. Hughes.
Your worship, members of council, the design team has taken a look at the building. We have heard what the user groups are looking for. We've got a list of materials they would like storage, and we'll continue to push back on that a little bit for sure. But we do have, I think we've got a reasonable list of things that we need to store. The team has come up with locations for some of these. We don't have kind of detailed designs right now. We're going to tweak it a little bit. The team has also tweaked the design a little bit from what's shown in the presentation. They've relocated the restaurant space to south of the theater itself. The theater is a box with no windows. It's a wall. It doesn't need a good view of the bay. So they've relocated the restaurant there, which also then opens up the studio space with a direct view of the water. So it was a really good design choice they made. The other thing they did is removed all the support spaces and the storage spaces. They moved them to the north end of the facility. So they've created, I'll call it a service spine, so that the user space is all one contiguous space. And with the gala system that's been recommended, the floor from one end to the other with the gala system deployed would be the same level. There's no steps. You can walk basically from one end into the theater, across the seating, onto the stage, through the back door of the stage, and at some point into the future rehearsal hall space that could be up to 5,000 square feet. So the site is designed for it. We don't have the 5,000 square feet within the costing, but certainly with the construction, we would provide, rough ends for it, so we're not tearing the building apart sometime in the future to build it.
Okay, thank you. So we've tried to include some of the items that were identified by the community with relation to storage. The 5,000 square feet, I hope council doesn't mind. I'm going to take the liberty of just going right up front here and giving you my opinion. I also want to say, Councilor Rima, you've done a bunch of work on this, and I don't know that we necessarily 100% agree yet, but I think it's still worth talking about. So let's go from there. So this facility, as I see it, is a performing arts center and it's convention space. That will mean that we are not in a position, hopefully, between the restaurant paying rent, a coffee shop, et cetera, paying rent, and having conventions and conferences and performing arts all the time, in a position where we're paying for this every year with supplements and subsidizing it. We want to be as close to neutral or making money as possible. And I think that that's the reason that the $10 million is worth it on the seating going into the floor. It is $10 million. Just want to be upfront. It's $10 million bucks. To me, it makes a whole lot of sense. When we look at the additional 5,000 square feet, when I want everyone to kind of step back for a second to look at how we're going to pay for this, because this is where I start to get a little bit concerned. We currently have 13 million bucks in that account. $3 million from the sale of Dean, $10 million from the Electra dividends. There's a parking lot reconstruction that was there that's somewhere between 8.5 and 11.5. I'm forgetting the number, but between those, you're over 20 million, as high as $23.5 million. On top of that, we have a couple of pieces of property that we're going to be selling that I believe that between the two of them will end up in the $20 million neighborhood. And those dollars need to go to the Performing Arts Center as well. So now we're at $43.5 million on a $85 million bill. Let's call it 50% because it's very close to 50%. And it'll probably go over by 2 million because that's what happens in these projects. And we need to go to the feds in the province. Now the feds, as I understand it, are about to create some sort of funding for community center space that we don't know what that looks like. Okay, that's just something that they've forecast in their budget, but just because they budget something, we then need to see what the rules of it are. The province, I don't believe, has a whole bunch of money, and we're going to be going to Toronto and twisting some arms or getting some arms twisted or whatever happens, and begging for contribution on that as well. If they come in for, let's say, 20% each, we're going to be in a position where we're right on the doorstep of having it paid for, which is the 10% that we're asking to be raised in the community. And that, I think, is manageable. You're going to end up with $8.5 million coming in from the community. You're going to end up with money from the feds, money from the province. And if it doesn't come in, we'll have to face a question of reserve or spending from reserves, issuing debt, whatever makes the most sense according to our staff. So that's the financial picture. I'm weary to go, we're at 75. It's come back that it's going to be more expensive. It's going to be at 85 million. And then go up to 90 million. I'm starting to get, some heart palpitations, to be honest with you. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done. I just don't know that it should be done right now. And, if I could count the times that we said we'll rough it in and we'll do something later, like see the Molson Center for details, it never happens. So I think we kind of have to be pretty clear with the public that if this is a thing that's going to happen, then let's get the facility paid for. And if there's another fundraising campaign that needs to go out for that $5 million, like we can go down that road with the community. But I don't believe personally that today's the day. I think that this 5,000 square feet will knock the Five Points Theatre out of existence. I fail to understand what will happen at the Five Points Theatre. That won't happen in the Performing Arts Center in one way or another, especially when you've got seating that's being removed. There's, Mr. Hughes, how big was that again? How big is the Five Points Theatre? 10,000?
Your worship's about 10,000 square feet.
10,000 square feet. So we could sell the Five Points Theatre. I think we'd put a good dent in doing this extra 5,000 square feet, but you're going from 10,000 usable square feet to 5,000 usable square feet. And I'm not totally sold on that today. Council maybe, and I'll back whatever council decides. I'm just telling you where I'm at, okay? I think this is a great plan. I think it's in the right place. And I think that it's going to provide a whole lot of benefit to this community, both in the arts community and in the community at large. If we do it right and we rough it in, we don't have to do everything today. If council wants to say, you know what, no, let's just go the extra 5 million and maybe 5.5 with contingency costs, then I'm open to that as well. I will tell you, there's a little bit of a pit in my stomach that's coming when we're starting to break towards the $100 million facility. So I'll open it up there, and hopefully everything I said made sense and was accurate. Was I accurate, Mr. Hughes? Perfect. Councillor Kunkel.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Nuttall, I do have a series of questions seeking clarification on, I think, just areas or in particular around recommendation number 4, that we are removing the 10-year capital plan regarding the park related to the Performing Arts Center with funding associated. So I'll look to see if that, because it's tied to the park, but it's also tied to the facility. I'm not sure if it's best to redirect to you, CEO Prowse, or to Mr. Hughes and then move between Ms. Banfield if it gets more into parks and planning. So I guess it's around the scope of the project and what is the intention from this recommendation? So perhaps maybe through you, Mayor Nuttall, to start with Mr. Hughes. What is the consequence of that around what the initial commitment was for a park? So how is the green space or park space that this capital project originated from around, I believe it was quite a lot more than that when we started and we've kind of dwindled it down, but I haven't seen that reflected in the memo.
I'm going to ask Mr. Prowse to step in.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Thanks, Mayor Nuttall. Through you to Councillor Kunkel, and certainly Mr. Hughes or Ms. Banfield can speak to the additional detail if you require them. I think by order of operations, it's important that Council recognize that the original capital plan was crafted before the Performing Arts Centre was ever envisioned in this site. So what's happened since that time is the capital plan has been de-scoped effectively because we recognize that we're going to build a Performing Arts Centre long before we build a park. And then eventually landed on the piece that we're going to build a Performing Arts Centre before we build the park. So really effectively what council is doing is, if you adopt this motion tonight, is you're sending staff off to finish the work on the PAC, and then at a future date, staff will come back to council with a capital plan. There is additional park work that would be required in the area, but that work won't be envisioned really until the work around the PAC is complete. So it's premature to have an approval from council on a capital project, which is not going to see the light of day. It's going to change. So you should expect that an additional request will come in the future once we've determined the details, the scope, the size, all of the features around the PAC, and then staff will give some thought to what are the additional amenities that a park would add to the area, and we will bring back to you a capital request so you can envision that as part of the park. But that whole plan is simply outdated. That's why it's recommended being removed.
In follow-up, if I may, completely appreciate that maybe is outdated. I guess I'm looking to understand the reference to future, of course, being vague, but is there a way in which, ideally there would be some formalized planning so that as we're timing and we have more knowns around completion occupancy of the theater, then making sure that that park is timed for completion at the same time. So we're doing a grand opening and activating that space where the capital project isn't an afterthought. And so when I think about it as a larger parcel of a project versus the facility and theater, I'm kind of hearing that there's two pieces, but their interdependencies are there. And so, when we talk about money tied to this, I don't want us to lose sight of removing something that I believe will need to be replaced. And so we're not just talking about maybe a potential $5 million and an additional 5,000 square feet space, but we've also technically lost or removed the money that we will need for a park. And that I think that is just as important around when we're looking at activation of the space and people's movement in and out of the theater, and connected to a waterfront master plan that we've been getting amazing attention for, that I'm hoping the timing adds up versus it being an afterthought and we're finding money for it and it's not planned around the engineering and scope about how we want to see movability around that space as a larger block.
So if I can jump in, I think it's really important we if we don't let Mr. Hughes go home, okay, and he works day and night, and I get what I'm asked for, which is breaking ground in 2026, right? How long is the build, pretending we get into the ground in 2026?
Your worship, if memory serves correctly, I think the opening date was late 2029 by the time we do all the site work and the construction fit out of the building.
He's starting in 2027, you'll hear there. Best case scenario is the end of 28. Worst case scenario is the end of 30, give or take a year. So I think when we're looking at the park, right, and we're looking at some of the things around it, if today there's 4 years, right? That's 4 separate capital plans, and that's probably many reports back on this facility where we can get into finer detail. But I wouldn't want to put the park in and then destroy it when we build.
I think I hear you. I'm not saying that at all around, one coming before the other. It's just around not losing sight that this capital plan needs to come back at some point in a timely way to make sure that we're completing at least as not an afterthought, and that we're not losing sight to kind of say we also need to plan financially for this piece, that it's not going to be, I believe, an all said and done parcel area around connectivity. The other question I had was on that then, the recommendation number 5 that's indicating a single source contract to this architect from design to completion. And I guess I would ask to what degree, and I don't want to be critical, but I'm asking it because it's the point in time in the process to ask it. But making sure that there are pieces from an internal engagement on things around we are a bird-friendly city and there's conditions around design, especially for a beautiful concept around water, lighting, and glass. And in that, then, the inclusion of the waterfront master plan. It's probably the only thing, while it's a nice, concise memo that stood out to me around making sure that this individual, if we're going with a single source, there is some type of movement towards outside of just the facility development and involvement, that it is looking at other master plans and not just designing for the facility, but designing for the actual functionality of the space that's broader. Maybe that's fair to look to you, Mr. Hughes, around if you could speak to that around looking at that from an architect design, but also from a facilities management, but then to a broader operations activation.
Sorry, before, I'm just going to redirect your question directly to Mr. Hughes. Mr. Hughes, there was a thick set of drawings that were done, and they included the entire waterfront because of this exact reason from the architect. I don't know, the architect from SAM, but there was, I think Eric, do we have it in our office still? The package?
We have a package in the office, but I do believe it was from an outdated design.
For sure an outdated design, but I think there was about 100 different depictions of the waterfront, trying to understand how it all fit in together. Mr. Hughes, I don't know if you have that, or, okay, you have something, there you go. So, it's outdated, but if you answer the question, but just so council's, in the know on that, it was a very fulsome waterfront look.
Through your worship to Councillor Kungl. So on the design side, things like the bird-friendly city, those are standards that we follow anyway, so we do that on all our buildings. The architects will follow that. The architects have also seen and reviewed the entire waterfront master plan. We've got a bunch of different revisions. So if we don't do, I think the original waterfront master, the Spirit Catcher Park, if I remember right, was $12 million or $12.5 million or something. It was a significant amount of money. Whatever we end up doing in the future, nothing that we're doing now, we're not throwing away money. So we're going to make sure that whatever we do now, we're not going to have to pull it apart only to redo it again. So they understand very well what the original scope was. And there's a lot of community consultation that was still going to happen, related to that. So, that is still going to happen for sure. At some time in the future when the park is developed. So we want to make sure that they do know what the waterfront master plan is, what it looks like, what the overall vision is, and then that vision will be tweaked over time with public input.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. I think it's helpful just because while there's been, as we referenced, 50 years of conversation and this has changed drastically, I'm not opposed to the creative approach to the flooring and the seating and the conversion to allow it to be a bit more multi-purpose. So I don't have a concern with the movement of the 10 million. I would say I completely hear about the considerations around costing, but I think if we're going to do this, we do it exceptionally well. So I don't have a hesitation of going to 90 if it means getting the 5,000 square foot rehearsal space, if there's more confidence in getting it done while we're doing it, designing it in the broader scope versus a roughed-in, or at least some type of public commitment that we will have a separate campaign and that the intention is that that is part of the design.
Can I just ask you a follow-up on that? And I have Councillor Reitman, then I have Councillor Corser, and then I have Councillor Harris. So you're saying a separate campaign for that 5 million?
If that was what I was hearing from you around, if we don't put it in and there's concerns about, threshold, but there is intent, then I would like to see that is an intention, that is included. And if it's not part of what gets supported here, I'll look to hear from other members around council. I'd be willing to amend this to a 90 million and change the motion to including the rehearsal hall at 5,000 square feet and going up to a threshold of 90 million.
And so would you be saying, okay, so we then change the goal of 8.5 to 13.5, or is it just pay it out of the city pocket and not get it back?
I think I'm looking to kind of hear what might make sense. I hear your concerns about, not wanting to go over 85. And so I would like to see the 5,000 square foot space maximized in this. And if it means, we don't have an appetite to do that and we wait and see what operating looks like, what the cost of what the cycle of operating looks like, if we have a powerhouse of a return on a public commitment and private partnership in this, if that's part of the scope or sponsorship or naming, whatever that looks like around costing that out, or if the province does come up with something. I think there's so many unknowns, so I would like to leave at least a placeholder for us not to leave out, if we're not motioning for a threshold of 90 million, that there's an intention to come back around making sure that if it's a separate capital campaign that's done, then we look at it that way.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Rietma, and then I've got Councillor Corser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one question and then I'll have some remarks. And the question that I have is in section 5, we're talking about retaining an architect, and this architect is tops, absolutely, done a terrific job so far. But it's going from the design stage currently to right through to construction completion. And I'm wondering if there's part of that will include coming back to council with designs, more detailed designs, and whether or not that includes consultation with the various arts groups that'll be using the building.
Through your worship to Councillor Rietma, I mean, certainly throughout the course of design, I mean, regularly on our larger projects, we do send regular updates to council, so happy to provide, you know, kind of snippets along the way, you know, maybe quarterly or something. You probably don't want to get into the weeds, but, you know, as far as the consultation with the various user groups go, I mean, we are building I'm going to call it a generic building. We're building it for everybody, right? So, you know, we're going to listen to everybody that has questions and has comments. We're not going to commit to build what everybody wants, because I think your budget target will go out the window if we do that. But, you know, we always want to make sure that whatever we build is functional for the most people. I mean, field of dreams, if you build it, they will come. Somebody will come, right? Whether it's well used or not, that's another question, right? You know, and I think we want to make good use of taxpayers' dollars here.
Also, I just want to point out that this is a standing item on the executive committee. So every time we have an executive committee meeting, we have an update. Rather than having a report once a year or whatever, this is constant.
Point well taken, actually, and yeah, I'm very pleased to hear that the arts groups will be consulted as we get into the more details, because in a building such as this, the interesting thing is that it's really like an iceberg. The average person taking in a performance sees the tip of the iceberg, but there's a huge part of the building that is really, really important that nobody ever sees. I think it's a terrific design from where we sit right now, and I think it'll be a great credit to the city and to the downtown. I think it will really put us on the map, frankly. I'm very sensitive to the cost because, you know, every dollar's got to come from somewhere, and we know where it's coming from. However, I am concerned that, excuse me, we might be penny wise and pound foolish, and that's my concern. And my thinking on it is that if for $5 million we can get 5,000 square feet, finish the building, I think that represents good value. And to me, if we don't do it and we come back and do it 10 years from now, it's not going to be $5 million. It's going to be 40 million. You know, we have that experience with the Sadlin Center, right? I mean, we're looking to add 500 seats, and it's 47 million or whatever that number was. It's huge. So that's my concern, and I would very much like to hear what other people have to say. But I'd be really interested in seeing the extra 5,000 square feet. I think, you know, we have, I think if we build a terrific building And I think I definitely agree with the gala seating so that we have a flat floor that we can have, it's a multi-purpose place. And my suspicion is that it will be very well used and that we will be sorry very quickly that we didn't build the extra 5,000 square feet. And if you think about it, if we're going to have a convention there and you've got the extra space, you can just have a bigger convention. And I think that puts us in the market for a whole lot of other opportunities. So I'm like Councillor Congo. I'm prepared to make an amendment, but I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say. I'm very sensitive about the cost. Let's face it, I mean, it's a big dollar. But I think we get to do it once and we get to do it right.
Thank you, Councillor Rietma. I'm going to go to Councillor Corser next.
Thank you. I actually had some concerns, as Councillor Congo did, regarding the park project. First, I got a couple of questions, actually. The original, the 2023 Waterfront Strategic Plan had that as a Spirit Catcher Park, which, as quoted, Spirit Catcher to provide a flexible and vibrant space that celebrates Indigenous culture. And there was a lot of conversation about different elements that we were working with the Indigenous community to instill into that park. And now that it has changed completely in what the city plans have been prior, the Spirit Catcher Park is now the Performing Arts Center Park. And I had some conversations earlier with staff, but my main concern is that we don't lose sight on what we have, the relationships we've built with the Indigenous community and how we're moving forward with the different elements that were discussed and were voted on at a prior time for Indigenous members of our community.
Yeah, just want to remind you that we have actually voted on a park, and it's not a park because that's not what did they call it, a space that's set aside for Indigenous communities. We've had CEO Prowse and I met with the Wendat Nation, where we discussed beside the Allendale train station that we would have a space set aside there. We've met with Indigenous groups with the Barrie Native Friendship Center, with our Treaty First Nations to have a conversation about what that'll eventually look like. And I think that one of the nice things, hopefully, that we'll see in the spring is as areas around there get credited as no longer having any archaeological value, that we can perhaps move towards bringing the fence in and then starting to set up that space. And the other thing that we are looking at over there was to have and I'm going to mess this up and I apologize, but to have a place where a fire can take place. Sorry? Sacred fire, thank you. That we can actually have there, and it needs to be designed in a way that it fits multiple First Nations, not just one. So there is space that we have identified, which is, the 9 Mile Portage is also a significant space. I would argue that we probably have far more significant space over at Allendale Station, based on 14 years of archaeological work, trying to make sure that we respect the past. So I don't think that's lost on anyone, and we did vote on that as a council and made sure that it was being respected.
Okay, thank you for that, because one of my concerns was the sacred fire and how that was going to fit in the waterfront, because I imagine that would be a very large space that would be necessary for a gathering for that.
Yeah, and one of the neat things that we heard, and I think it was the Grand Chief who said this, was it was pretty neat that it was going to be literally where the GO train comes into the city. And so when individuals are able to come to Barrie, get off the GO train, it would be an immediate thing in front of them. So very easy to get to for those in town at the transit terminal, but also out of town with a GO train. So I think that all the feedback that I've received has been like very positive, that should be the space. But recognize that the Spirit Catcher holds a different significance.
And that was my second question, if I may. The again, speaking earlier to Staffa, about holding back the money for the park and how the potential relocation of the spirit catcher, the conservation work that's involved in the reinstallation, how that would be funded, discussed, and handled with the McLaren Art Center, and what kind of agreements they have with the original artist. And would that, because it's exterior of the building, would that be about the conversation about the park, or that would be about the building, the budget of the building itself?
Mr. Hughes, I think that the relocation was inside of the budget, but I'll leave that to you to.
Through your worship, there are ongoing discussions with McLaren about the relocation of the spirit catcher. So it's shown in these drawings as being relocated because this is the artist's suggestion. It's not our sculpture, right? It is McLaren's sculpture. There's a bunch of work, and there are ongoing meetings with them, right? So the plan, the Performing Arts Center works with it in the front or where it is right now. The other thing that I wanted to point out, so if you remember the spirit catcher, the base of the spirit catcher is up about 7 feet. You have to go up a hill to get there. When we build the Performing Arts Center, in order to minimize the subsurface costs, we're actually building up the entire property. So the ground floor, if you will, of the Performing Arts Center will be about the same height as the base of the spirit catcher. So if we can relocate it, we'll relocate it. If it doesn't make sense to relocate it, if there's too many costs or, too many issues involved, or, if McLaren chooses to do something else with it, that's their call. But we've looked at both of them, so we have both options.
Okay, thank you very much. That's good. That's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corser. And I'm going to move on to Councillor Harris, I think I had first, and then Councillor Morales, and then Councillor Harvey.
Great. Thank you, Meadow. And first off, thank you for the narration of the video. That was appreciated. And the dialogue with Mr. Pugh's level setting was really, really helpful too. And certainly the path to getting this funded. I think that was a key, and to see that there is a path, a viable path. I think that was important. It feels like in the items that we've talked about, there's some peripheral items like the park. And I thank you for mentioning and recognizing the Allendale Station, already the commitments made around Indigenous recognition for that area and its historic significance, which we're still sorting out today as the archaeological dig still happens. So we look forward to that area honoring our Indigenous community. So thank you for that reminder. With that said, earlier tonight we passed a motion, asking staff to undertake a comprehensive review of our assets. And I'm through you to Mr. Prowse. Would I be correct in the assumption that the 5 Points Theatre would be one of those assets that would be in that review?
Through you, Mayor Nettle, to Councillor Harris. Councillor Harris, if I'm being very honest, which I should be, I don't think it was envisioned. I think as part of the development of the Performing Arts Center, I think the future of the 5 Points was always a question mark that we anticipated bringing back to council. So I think the answer to your question is, do we expect to come back with a report to council on the future of the Performing Arts Center at the 5 Points? The answer to that is yes. The earlier motion, I didn't, in my mind at least, tie directly to building assets because oftentimes they don't have the great return on the investment we would like. So in my mind, I hadn't linked the two, to be quite candid with you. But certainly that can be part of the work. It would separately be part of the work, I believe, as Mr. Pugh's works through the Performing Arts Center updates to council, because at some point, I think decisions around the future of that, including tonight, once council renders a decision on where they want to go as it relates to the Performing Arts Center, council should expect a report back on the performing arts space at the 5 Points, and are probably due an update on the Georgian space as well.
Great, thank you. And that makes great sense. Yeah, that theater would be receiving a comprehensive review as we looked at this new Performing Arts Center. I just wanted to kind of make that point. I think it seems like our challenge opportunity is the rehearsal space, the added space to rough it in, to go for it now, and then you have this opportunity to maximize or improve the usage of the 5 Points in the interim, or you do this now. So kind of like some others uncertain on what the best approach is, but I do appreciate the value of, and having been part of the Performing Arts Center Task Force, the value of the rehearsal space. However, if we have one, that is a part of the equation too. I'm just curious, maybe for people's benefit, through you, Mayor Noddle, to Mr. Hughes. I'm trying to remember again through all the work with the Performing Arts Center Task Force. Is it a limited number of specialists who actually do performing arts center architecture or design? Is that a narrow group?
Your worship, to Councillor Harris, that is correct. It's a niche. You know, it's that and hospitals and other sorts of things. It's not a condo building that have lots of people design them.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the idea of single sourcing in item 5 is not surprising, given this is a very specialized type of design, and that we've got somebody who's done this and we're quite confident working with. So I appreciate that clarification. Just the other piece around fundraising, I think obviously the 10% is a target. There's no reason why we can't exceed that, correct? I mean, there's no limitation. You stop at 10%, or is this a hard cap? Maybe not. You want to answer that, I think.
I mean, I just think that if you set a target of 8.5 and they hit 8.5, they're not going to 8.7. It's just human nature, and I think we've never had a problem. I could be corrected. We've never had a problem of too much money coming in with the fundraising in the community. I think it's been a problem of maybe the money didn't come in. So we need to be very clear about that. Once this is through tonight, assuming council approves this, which sounds like you're going to, my thought process is going into who's the fundraising team, who's going to participate, where the dollar is going to come from, and how we get all of those businesses that do so well off our city involved in supporting this. So, I think that the fundraising part's an answer that we will probably be able to give, but I think it's a February, March, April, not a December, because they need to have the product in order to even contemplate what the fundraising is. And I don't want to complicate it anymore, but we do have commitments of 5 points, right? So if we remove 5 points out of our as one of our facilities, I'm guessing there's some agreements that are in place. We're going to have to move over to downtown.
Thank you. Yeah, it's setting a target and getting there are two different things, right? So yeah, I appreciate that reality check on that. But I'm sure our performing arts community will be robust in the effort to push that number as high as it can get. I think I'll leave it there for now. It's an exciting project. I really appreciate council's support for this. And you talk about fundraising. That was one of the subcommittees in the Performing Arts Task Force where we realized we were way too ahead of the game to talk about fundraising. I know Deputy Mayor Thompson had done some investigation on that and what it took and what was involved. So, but it feels like we're much closer to that being a reality and part of our efforts as a city than we have ever been. So I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you. And I had Councillor Morales, and then I've got Councillor Harvey, and then I've got Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. It was not on my bingo card specifically with this issue. I almost completely agree with you, Councillor Rima, on what you said. One of my biggest municipal frustrations, I know what an issue, to unite over, but lots of surprises and really well said, Councillor Rima. One of my most frustrating municipal frustrations has become missed opportunities with long-range asset planning. What do I mean by that? It means when I approach a situation, I get told, sorry, we didn't design the road that way. Slap on some speed bumps. Sorry, we didn't design the rec center for that Olympic-sized pool or that capacity. We don't have this. Sorry. So while this project scares me, and I've said, I think the words I was using last time I came was objective faith, factual on this, is if we're gonna do it, in my personal opinion, we have to do this space. I also was around when we did the first responders campus, and not a member of council here, but and it got supported by 6 votes, so shouldn't single anyone out, but we ended up collectively removing the training range. So that is, it still functions and they've moved forward, but from an operations and functionability perspective, as Councillor Reitman and Mr. Pews were saying, it does present challenges. We have a blank canvas to do it right. And what I would hate to see happen is, it's already hard, I'm going to just be blunt, it's already hard enough to make a theater work. And if we're not going to go all in, we're not going to compete with Aurora. We are not going to compete with the York regions. We're not going to compete with Aurelia. So I'm still very hesitant, and obviously the cost has gone up, it's gone down, it's gone up, it's gone down from the up cost. It's kind of like when a sale price goes up, but it's on sale. But that's just how it is. But if we're gonna do it, we have to do it, because I don't want anyone, including myself, to be here whenever this gets done and see it didn't work. Well, that's because we didn't do it all in. And again, your analogy about, we're chasing cents to save, or, the analogy that you said is problematic on this. So I don't want this to be another missed opportunity in terms of, like I said, long-range asset planning infrastructure. And that said, I am confident that there's a likelihood that monies from the federal and provincial governments do come in. So, and in addition to that, while currently the market's not there for condo high-rise construction, I believe in the resilience of our downtown. I believe in the long-term range growth of our downtown. So if you build it, they will come. If you build a proper facility here, myself believing in the future of the density of downtown, I understand it's not as simple as just take DCs and put it there, but the population will be there to support it. So probably not what you expected from me saying, go ahead from mine, but I would support an amendment to keep that facility in there. And totally unrelated, but if there ever was a motion to, once this gets done, don't worry, but once this is in, to surplus the existing theater center, that would make an excellent post-secondary lecture hall. Just saying, once it's done.
Okay, we're gonna have a new seating plan. The clerk and deputy clerk are gonna move, and Councillor Reitman and Councillor Morales will be sitting in their seats going forward. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'll be quite honest with you, I never expected that to come out of Councillor Morales' mouth. Through you to staff, I know there's been a lot of discussion around this 5,000 square feet. It's been referred to as storage space. It's been referred to as rehearsal space. Can you provide a little more clarity on exactly what this space would be used for?
Through your worship to Councillor Harvey. So the original space that was envisioned by the architects was 2,200 square foot rehearsal hall. Number of numbers have been bandied about, up to 5,000 square feet. So what they've included now in their design is basically the dotted line. They've revised the building so that we could build 5,000 square feet. To be honest, we don't have the programming right now at this point anyways for 5,000 square feet. The idea was that it would be a rehearsal hall. That was what the original intent was. If we build something bigger, I have to be, have to support my colleagues in recreation. I think they would want a chance to be able to go back and say, well, this is what we will use it for. This is how we will use it, because I don't believe we have the programming for it at this time.
Okay, thank you. And just a follow up to that, when it comes to the storage piece, and you spoke about how obviously the drawings are not up to date, there's been some movement with the way things are going to be laid out. Would I be safe in assuming there's going to be a fair amount of storage space in the current design without having this additional square footage that we're speaking of?
Through your worship to Councillor Harvey. That's correct. So the storage is going to be in the existing building within the existing footprint, where we weren't planning on relying on the additional space for storage. I mean, certainly if we need it in the future, we could reconfigure a space to provide it, but that wasn't the intent.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarity. I'm with you on this one, Mayor Nuttall. I don't think tonight we're in any rush to have to make a decision, and especially we're just hearing that there's really not the programming at this point to justify this. So without an appropriate business plan, I have a hard time adding another 5 million to the 10 million ask. And I'll be quite honest with you, the 10 million, it took me a little bit to kind of warm up to that one, and watching a few videos on this gable style seating. And obviously the fact that we want this facility to be successful and also create a space for conferences, conventions. So that way, hopefully this thing is going every day of the week, if possible. So that 10 million makes 100% sense because there's no other way to be able to do what we need it to do without going with this fancy hydraulic system that flips the seats and creates a flat floor on that lower level. But I'm struggling with this extra 5 million at this point. And that's where I think too, if it's designed for a rough-in, that there's no rush to be doing this because Sadlin was not designed for any rough-in. And to Councillor Rietma's point, because some of what he said was accurate, his numbers were totally off, but they cut back significantly to be able to fit within a budget that the members of council at that particular time could stomach and moving forward with. Thus why the grand entrance was never built and they reduced the seating to where it ended up. But like, I mean, the fact that this would be actually retrofitted so that way, if we decided not to proceed with this, even in another year, let's say, when the shovels are going in the ground, that at least it's something that is very easily added on to down the road when maybe there is a better business plan, or who knows, maybe that better business plan may exist in the next 8 to 12 months, who knows. But I'm with you at this point that I really have a hard time stomaching putting another 5 on top of the 10 until I can see something that would truly justify it, especially with the responses that I've heard from staff here tonight.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harvey. I did have other hands, so Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just thinking back to what was said earlier about this has been on the table or been originally discussed going back almost 50 years. I guess if it had been built then, something to think about is we'd probably be sitting around this table right now talking about how it needs to be knocked down and rebuilt. So it might have been a lot cheaper back then, but we probably would be in the exact same boat now, with the exception of maybe some heritage concerns about that particular building. If we're going to do it, let's do it. I mean, this has been talked about for so long. I have absolutely no issue with the increased cost for the gala seating. What we need, just as important as a performing arts center, is convention space. And there's no way you're going to build any kind of suitable convention space for $10 million. You're just not going to do it. So I support completely spending the additional money. We know there's going to be, as things progress, prices generally don't come down, so there's probably going to be some increases talked about around this table over the next few years. As far as the additional space, I do agree with Councillor Harvey that if it can be designed and roughed in, we do have time. We've got a year or two at least to determine what's going to happen with that, but at least it will be, in the original design. So I don't know if there's amendments proposed, but for what it's worth, I support this 100%.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. I'm going to go over to Councillor Hamilton because I already went past Councillor Hamilton. And because you've spoken, I'm going to go over to Councillor Negussi. And then I saw Councillor Kungl and then Councillor Morales, and I'll hopefully keep that in the right order. Councillor.
Thank you, and through you, I'll be brief, just noting a time now. It is 7:30, and I don't want to reiterate what was said, but Councillor Kungl and Councillor Rietma did want to hear from everyone around the table, so I'll chime in. And I agree, I'm not going to reiterate everything, but we've got one shot to do this. I think we've got to do it right. What Councillor Nixon just said, I mean, if we could redo Sadlin Arena, we would. So I'm supportive of both, actually. Definitely the gala seating, but also the rehearsal space. And just hearing what you said, Mayor Nuttall, we don't have to decide right now. We can reassess down the road. I almost think the reverse, though. Why don't we plan now, reassess as we go, right? And as we're getting better understanding of costs and 18 months down the road, give staff the time to kind of do that analysis. But let's proceed green light plan for it now, do it. We can talk about the fundraising, and if 12 months, 18 down the road, as we get closer to, we have to revisit it, let's revisit it. But I'd rather do the reverse of what you said and go all in now, understand what the costs are going to be, and pivot and adjust as we go along. So that's my 2 cents. Happy to support an amendment if either of you put it forward.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. I will say if we propose something and then don't do it, they're not very happy. So I'm like a set the expectation person and then hopefully we exceed versus the opposite. Now that's just, it's one, like, to put it in perspective, how big is the facility?
Well, Your Worship, now you're testing my memory. Gross square footage, somewhere around 60,000. I think the facility itself is 48, and I could be off my numbers.
Okay, so we're talking about an additional 5 on top of 60, right? So it's not, like, when you're talking about $100 million or $90 million, 5's not an exorbitant amount. These things have a way of going north and really south, you know? So
yeah, I just as a follow-up though, I think it puts the pressure on us from fundraising to rein costs in. Like, I think it's an easy thing to put off. You know, the same notion you're saying, we don't want to set up for failure, and I agree. As soon as we say we're going to do something, all eyes are on us to do it. Great, let's have all eyes on us to do it, to make sure we're not going forward with additions and additions. And like, to me, let's know now what we're dealing with. So I see both sides, but to be honest, yeah, I'm tending to agree with the other side of the table for once here. And I'm happy to support, so.
I think Councillor Hamilton just volunteered for the fundraising board. Okay, so I'm just kidding, Councillor. Okay, I have Councillor Negussi, then I've got Councillor Kungle, and then I've got Councillor Morales, and then I've got Councillor Riepma.
Thank you, Mayor Nadal. I support this motion. Overall, this is a very smart investment that will transfer our downtown, attract visitors and provide residents with both a world-class facility and accessible space. And this is a great idea. This project demonstrates a strong commitment to the cultural and economic growth in our community, and it's a great idea, so I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Negussi. Councillor Kungle. Do you want it to go to Councillor Riepma first?
I'm going to give Councillor Riepma the opportunity.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm at this point ready to put forward a formal amendment. So moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Morales. I don't need a seconder, but I'll have a.
Just let him. Just let him this
I'll
once.
take all the help I can get.
I'm passing it. It's all free for all.
So basically then looking at item 3 and amending it slightly to say that a gala seating system and 5,000 square foot seating system or 5,000 square foot addition be included in the project design scope, and that the total requested project budget be increased by 15 million to 90 million. That's my amendment.
Is the just before I go to Deputy Mayor on this, is the current motion not recommending the additional 10 million?
Yes.
That's kind of
Okay.
going to 15.
Okay, so I just want to make sure the verbiage is right, because the amendment's not changing it by 15 million, it's changing it by 5. Correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and that, okay. This
Mr.
is
Mayor,
one of those
I wouldn't.
examples of my brain not working, so
Yes,
that's okay.
I wouldn't dare go to 15 million.
Okay. Okay. So now we have a new motion on the floor. I did have Councilor Morales next. Do you want to speak to this or? Okay, you're speaking to the amendment? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Nettle. I am supportive of the amendment. this is joking. Shame on you for not letting Councillor Reitma have me as the seconder on this. That's a joke. Sorry, you turned it away for the joke. It's a joke. I know it's not the rules of general committee, but I see a lot of jaws on the ground right now in the gallery. But no, this amendment, I'll be supporting it. I would like to do an amendment to an amendment, which I believe we still can in general. It's a very quick one. I was going to move this amendment, but and I would email it right now, but I'm having IT issues. So I'm going to have the clerks help me out just on capturing the wording, that at material completion, we'll let the experts of facilities, there is a term for material completion. At the material completion of the Performing Arts Center, that staff begin the process of surplusing the 5 Points Theater. And process means process, not like be forced to sell, right? There's a process and it goes through and we evaluate at that time, but I think connecting those, sorry, there's now commentary. I'll stop to make sure the clerk has the spirit of the amendment.
Okay, so I'm gonna, two things. One, I'm gonna let these come as the next amendment coming forward, Councilor Morales.
Okay.
If that's okay with you. But I do think that if you're selling off a facility that has a bunch of sponsorship and naming rights, we need to know what the implications are before we sell that. And if there needs to be negotiations to transfer sponsorship titles to the new facility, that needs to be done in advance.
Perfect.
Like it needs to be done up front. So I'm gonna push that till after, and then when we're talking about it, I think that you're asking us to make a decision, which I'm actually comfortable making, but you're asking us to make a decision on whether 5 Points exists after the completion of the facility.
While accounting for the technicalities of sponsorship rights and obligations.
Right, so our deputy clerk and clerk can work on that, and I'm gonna go now to Deputy Mayor Thompson, if that's good with you.
Okay, perfect. May I retain once this amendment's dealt with?
Yeah, after this is done, you're first up. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. To the mover of the motion, the suggested in design was for 2,200. I'm just trying to wonder like why we've come to 5,000.
Yeah, fair question. The 2,200 was the rehearsal space, but we have room on the site for 5,000 square feet. So that's the difference. Now, if our staff come back and say, well, we only need to build, to really get a good design to go to 3,500 square feet, I'm certainly open to that. But I think it's kind of the upper limit.
Thank you. I'll ask you the same question. I know you were involved in the conversation, Mayor Nuttall.
Yeah, the 5,000 comes from a conversation with the Arts Alliance. And included in that 5,000 square feet was the idea that there would be some office space as well as recording studio space and a moving of the, somebody tell me, the Valerie's organization. The Canadian, that, to the Performing Arts Center. Okay, so like just so we're all clear of what that 5,000 square feet is and what the 2,200 is, to the Deputy Mayor's point, the 2,200 was the rehearsal space. The additional space was to provide what is, I guess that would leave you 2,800 square feet, maybe minus some hallway or whatever. It's going to be 2,500 square feet in there for this youth organization, and I have some comments on that after, because I think we need to do a gut check on whether office space and recording studio belongs on the waterfront. And I just will go back to you, and then I have some comments after.
So thank you for that. So 2,200 would be rehearsal space, and the other remaining 2,800 would be office space and stuff for organizations and recording studios. So that kind of changes it for me. If it was for the because we said there was 10,000 square feet at 5 Points for all rehearsal. So now it's really 2,200 of programming. To Mr. Pugh's point, we don't have programming enough to suffice the 5,000 or to occupy. The this is where I have a little bit of trouble. Like, so we're asking the taxpayer to fund $3 million for somebody else's office space, somebody else's organization. I understand this is a city asset that we're going to utilize. And look, I sat on the task force, and I'm really for it. And to be honest, I'm going to fundraise right now. I have bricks from Central I'm selling. So, as part of it. So, I truly believe we still have them, Mr. Hughes, in the op center.
Through your worship, to Deputy Mayor Thompson, I would hope so.
Okay.
If not, you know where they are.
Yeah. So I agree with the amendment, and I spoke with Councilor Rima and stuff like that. I agree with it, but I think maybe we've got to be careful that if 2,200 is for the programming of the building of the request of somebody, an organization, not somebody, but to build an office, like we charge the Colts money for office space. I believe there was conversation with you that we charge office space for putting an office in the new rec center. I believe in one of our rec facilities, there's an agreement with the Sharks in a dressing room and stuff. So is the capital cost going to be endured by the taxpayer or by the organization? So is that removed? And that's part of the fundraising. So we've said 10%, it would be 9 million, but if it's actually 2.8 million for this space that's not part of the, is that going to be included in the fundraising side?
So, sorry, before I go, Councilor Rima, I know that, and you have information on this as well. So just before we get there, I don't think it would be fair to say that there's no rent going to be paid by the organization, because I think they pay rent already in another place over at 80 Bradford. I think what we heard was the space isn't big enough for them at 80 Bradford, and that they wanted it on site so that they could do like production of shows in a digital format, etc. And that was, I'm just trying to be fair to everybody on what the sales meeting sounded like. So that it is, as you say, office space. It is, as you say, recording studio. And I'm scared. I am fully scared of the 2,800. If council's going with the 2,200, it's kind of, to me, we'll make that back on the 5 Points Theater. I'm scared of the 2,800 because who's coming next? And I'm not just talking about a performing arts center.
So just to follow up to that, and some of the conversation was an extra 5,000 would attract more space for convention center, which, and not that it was done deliberate, but that's a false statement, because 2,800 will be occupied by an office, a recording studio, will not be transformed into convention space on the day of a convention. Another point that scares me is having a recording studio in offices. If somebody rents the venue for a wedding or a function, are you now saying to these people, you're not allowed to occupy your space while I'm here? So that these are some, and look, 100% support of the 85 million, and even an extra 2.2 million for the rehearsal space, because I would love to see everything in one building. I'm good with that in today's, but I just think operationally, and the cost, I think we need to be careful. And I made this comment when I was on the task force. I don't want to get to the point where this is the nicest theater on a brochure. I want this to be bricks and mortar that we can all enjoy, because this city needs it. So they're my concerns, and I'll listen around the table.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to respond to those concerns specifically. I understand, the interest that's been expressed for those extra square feet. I think that as a city, we should not commit ourselves to one particular organization for any space in that building. I think it needs to be a public building that is available to everyone all the time. And so, you know, if it's a recording studio for that part of it, which I don't think it should be, but I think we leave that for a later discussion. But if it is something that is exclusive to one organization, I think that's a problem from a public perspective. And I would not support that. My intention is, you know, we have space there for 5,000 square feet. If we use 2,200 of it for rehearsal space and another few hundred square feet for halls or whatever it is, and the architect says that's a good program, that's what we should do, then I'm quite content with that. I don't need to go to 5,000 square feet. I'm thinking that up to 5,000 square feet because that utilizes the whole site. But I'm very reluctant to, excuse me, say 2,200 for rehearsal space and then another 2,800 for a particular use, because I really don't think that we should be committing ourselves to that kind of thing.
Thank you, Councillor. And you'd had a similar conversation before this as well. I have Councillor Hamilton next. I do want to outline, folks, we literally have 2,800 square feet here that we don't know what it's going to be used for. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I think that was my point. Like when I read this amendment, my interpretation is that we're saying, and I would prefer it to say, and up to 5,000 square feet be included in the project design scope. It says nothing about what it's going to be used for, office space, specific organization. So I think, you know, that's something we would have to have further input on, and I'm not comfortable with what was discussed here and how that space would be used, but that's not my interpretation of the amendment. So I'm comfortable with the amendment as worded, knowing that we're not making any decisions tonight on the utilization of that space, the square footage for the rehearsal versus storage versus office space. I want to make sure that it's up to 5,000, but otherwise, I thank you for clarifying how your intention behind the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. And I have Councillor Kungl, I think, next.
Thank you. I guess my first question is, would you take Councillor Hamilton's comment as a friendly to that amendment? And I would be in support of that too. Councillor Hamilton?
Yes, I would agree. Up to 5,000.
Okay. And then I did have, I think, just an echoing Councillor Wheatman's commentary, and maybe didn't have privy or knowledge of that conversation around, you know, what the thought of that space would be utilized, but don't see it as prescriptive. I do see it as let's commit to a threshold of maximizing the use of that space for best use, and also knowing that we're going to grow and evolve over time, and that capacity could be something that ideally we're not looking back on in a short term to say, you know, it's going to be leveraged because we're going to attract people and it's going to grow interest and I think opportunities. So I'm not assuming at all that that is prescriptive space about functionality for anything outside of exploring best use of design for rehearsal and coming back.
So was that taken as a friendly?
Yes.
Yes? I'm sorry? That was taken as a friendly from Councillor Kungl?
Yes, it was.
Councillor Hamilton? Okay, perfect. Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor, and that'll maybe do a question to Mr. Hughes. How would that work? Up to 5,000, like you're going to go to a construction company and say, up to 5,000, if we can figure out programming, he's going to build 5,000. Like they're in the business to build and make money. So what stage would that be? Like if we're going for shovel ready for 2027, at what point do we engage with the user or to figure out if it's 22, 25, 35? Because if we go to a design, footings, support walls, beams, like unless you build a curtain wall that can be removed to blow out the extension, I don't know, like at what stage do you figure out by leaving it to meet with partners to work into lease agreements or use of property, are we delaying the project? And like, we have a design of 2,200 rehearsal space, everything that, oh, sorry, Mr. Hughes, go ahead.
No worries. Through you, Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor Thompson. So the original idea was we would, just as you say, curtain wall or something along that line, that could easily be removed when we build the expansion. I actually appreciate the thought of up to 5,000. You're right. If you ask a builder to build up to 5,000, you're going to get 5,000. I think what I would rather do is ask the consultants, what do we need? And go back to staff, the recreation staff, to do the programming, to say, what do we need to program for? And if they come back and say, you know, it's 3,000 square feet or 3,500 square feet, this is what the program looks like, then that's what we design for. You know, if we need 5,000, well, you know, there's that. But my sense is we don't need that.
Perfect. With that answer to my question, I'm a lot more comfortable. And like I said, I don't want to delay this. It's been delayed for 50 years. I think we're beyond that point. And secondly, I want a great product. Anything you build that's underutilized becomes the white elephant. So I don't want that as well. It takes away from the ambiance of things. So I think the due diligence and your answer of going forward in this conversation, which has been great. And to be honest, I'm surprised that nobody's been against the actual ask of building the performing arts, which is great. We've got 11 members of a board of directors around this table that's excited about bringing, a performing arts center to downtown Barrie. So that's all the positive stuff. So I'm very comfortable with your answer that we go to the consultant, it's up to 5,000, and that it's based on their recommendations. I can get around that and be comfortable with that.
Love council tonight. I told all these people their dreams aren't going to come true, and we come to the council table, and now everything you want is coming.
Merry Christmas.
Chuck, I don't think you got to do a deputation after this, okay? That's what I'm understanding. Okay, so I've got Councillor Corser and then Councillor Harvey, and then I'm going to call the vote on the amendment.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Nuttall, to, I guess, Mr. Hughes. I just wanted asking about staff process. When staff looks at what programming they could put in that space, are they looking at current population, or will they be looking at projected population in the downtown core?
Through your worship, I think the honest answer has to be both. However, we don't know what the future holds, so we also want to build something that's flexible enough so that, when tennis becomes pickleball, we've got a plan, right? So we do have multiple years, potentially up to 50 years worth of research that we've done on things that we need. Some of them we may need, probably a lot of it we don't need anymore. But we do have full plans of, requests, things that folks have come in and said, hey, we could use this, we could use that. We have been fitting as many of these things as we thought was reasonable into, the box that the council have asked us to look into. If the box is growing a little bit, we'll take a look at, the next lowest hanging fruit and see what works in there. But I wouldn't want to commit to, what those program elements are. And there may be some things that, people have not brought forward in the past because, well, you're just not going to build it anyway, so I won't ask, right? People will come out, I'm sure, and provide lots of feedback, and we're happy to listen to that feedback.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just a little bit of clarity from the clerk. So the amendment that's on the floor right now is up to 5,000 square feet. However, my understanding is we are approving the $5 million the way this amendment is worded currently. Am I correct in that?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harvey, the amount, sorry, I just closed it off. Just bear with me 2 seconds. It's to approve the extra 5,000 square feet, and it amends the cost from 10 million to 15 million, and then the 85 million is being amended to 90 million.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarity, because I didn't think the amendment was aligned with what the Deputy Mayor just spoke about with Mr. Hughes and staff and the consultant reporting back. So I'll leave that for the Deputy Mayor if he would like to tweak it to align it with the conversation. But just to kind of put this ask into perspective, let's say, especially since my colleague brought up the Saddle Arena, I did not want to be having a discussion about one over the other, but since somebody brought it up, it kind of opened the door. And I started looking at the square footage and the cost. So the new grand entrance that was proposed by the consultant in regards to the Saddlin was 33,000 square feet at the cost of $20 million, which works out to about $606 a square foot. So what we're actually talking about is something that's almost double the price per square foot. So my question through you, Mayor Nuttall, to staff would be, does this space necessarily have to be as high-end as the rest of the theater? Because everything that I've seen, it's extremely nice, it's beautiful. Like, I mean, I've been in my share of theaters as a dance dad, and I know the back of the Richmond Hill one so well, you could probably blindfold me and I wouldn't end up tripping down the stairs. But certain areas of these theaters are very glamorous looking. Other parts of the theaters that don't necessarily need to be, more the behind the scenes stuff. And that's where I'm also kind of wondering, is there a way to maybe tone down what's going into this area? And is there really a necessity for it to be quite as glamorous as the main part of the building, with this being a rehearsal space predominantly? Just your thoughts on that, Mr. Hughes, if you don't mind.
Sure. Through your worship to Councillor Harvey. So the actual cost per square foot really is going to depend on what the space is used for. As a rehearsal hall, the acoustics are important, and the acoustics are going to drive the cost. And it also, you know, it is a prime waterfront space, right? So it's going to command, you know, higher rent from groups and that sort of thing if it is a higher end. Ultimately, I think it really comes down to, I wouldn't want to fix a cost right now. You know, I think we need to identify what exactly we would use the space for, and then fit out the space specifically for that. But my sense is it's going to be kind of a rehearsal hall and a general purpose type space, you know, that's more functional. I don't see us building something that really only has one use, because that's probably not, you know, great benefit to the majority of taxpayers either. Don't know if that answers your question.
It sort of does, but I kind of put you on the spot anyway. It's not like you're going to be able to do some math and tell me you'd be able to do it for 700 a square or whatever. So thank you for your response, and thank you, Mayor Nuttall.
I'll definitely do it for 2,500.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. So first off, a clarity, was Councillor Harvey, he's a dancing dad or a dad dancer? I couldn't. He dances. Okay.
You would not want to see me dancing.
To the mover of the amendment, Mayor Nuttall, just as a friendly, just align the same conversation with Councillor Hamilton's wording up to 5,000. If we could do at $1,000 a square foot up to 5 million, that way we're not approving the bulk number. That it is only suited on as we go up in square footage as the consultant feels necessary. If you would take that as a friendly, and it just stay in line, because right now it's a bulk number at the total square area. But if we just did it as the same escalating scale.
Yeah, I would take that as a friendly.
Friendly taken. Okay, everyone understands that. Perfect. So we'll go, Councillor Harvey. Last word.
Yeah, sorry. I just want a little bit of clarity again on this one, because Mr. Pugh spoke about a reporting back after having some discussions with the consultant. I don't see any wording about reporting back in this amendment. Without some report back in this, I can't support this. I don't know if you want to take that as a friendly to it and tweak it, but what I understood from staff was a report back from the consultant, opposed to us giving it the rubber stamp tonight.
Yeah, I'm willing to have I don't know when Mr. Hughes would be able to report back to us, but certainly my very first question when I asked it, the community's going to be involved and there's going to be, we're going to see more detailed design because we haven't seen that. We've seen the concept, but we haven't seen the details. So yeah, I'm sure that Mr. Hughes would be able to report back to us when he's ready. And that would be fine with me too.
So I think the friendly was that, Mr. Hughes report back to the executive committee with, identifying how large, how much, and what the uses are in any additional space. And that was taken, I believe, by Councilor Reitman as a friendly, and our clerk's gonna have to put it all together, so.
Hey, city clerk.
Perfect, okay. So on the amendment, I'm going to go into the vote. I want to remind everybody that you build it, they'll come. You offer it, they'll take it, okay? So this isn't a question of up to 5,000 square feet. And I think that what I heard generally around the table is that everyone's happy with an additional 5,000 square feet. If you go to a consultant and ask them, how can we use 5,000 square feet? They're going to tell you how you can use 5,000 square feet. They're not going to tell you, no, you only need 2,200 or you only need 1,000 or you only need 500. So when we're going and asking consultants to tell us how to use space, they're going to bill us to tell us how to use space. And I think the false vote tonight would be to say, oh, but we don't know what it is and all that. And maybe Mr. Hughes will come back and shock me. Very unlikely. The vote tonight is actually if we're going to do 5,000 square feet or not, because no consultant's going to come back and say you don't need it.
Can you read it out?
Sorry?
Can you read out the amendment?
I don't think we can, but maybe the clerk can.
Okay, yeah, sorry. No pressure. I would, and correct me, Deputy Mayor, if I've misinterpreted your comments, that I, bear with me here, it's like in 4 different spots. That a gala seating system and 5,000 square foot seating system be included in the project, and up to 500 square foot seating system be included in the project design scope, and that the total requested budget be increased by 10 to 85 million, with the additional 5,000 square feet being up to $1,000 per square foot, up to $5 million, and I'll reword it, but is that the intention?
I believe that some of it's a little bit off. It was that the flooring be included, 10 million, and then I believe that the friendly from Councillor Hamilton was up to 5,000 square feet of rehearsal and other space. And then the next friendly was that it would be moved incrementally at $1,000 a square foot onto whatever the consultant said as needed space.
Okay.
And then the final friendly came from Councillor Harvey that it would be a report back to the executive committee or general committee would be how I would recall the motion being placed. So it would take the initial 75 75 to 85 for the gala seating and up to an additional 5 million on incremental of a per square footage basis.
What he said.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the
Okay.
clarity.
So I'm going to call the vote on what Deputy Mayor Thompson said. All those in favor? And it carries. So we'll move on to the main motion as amended. I have Councilor Morales who has another amendment. Councilor Morales?
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Ms. Cook, if you could help me with reading out the proposed amendment.
Certainly. The amendment that Councilor Morales had circulated, or I circulated on his behalf, is that staff report back to General Committee prior to material completion of the Performing Arts Center concerning the potential surplus of the Five Points Theatre, including any associated sponsorship implications.
Go ahead, Councilor Morales.
Pretty self-explanatory from the discussion we had. I'll field any questions if they come up though, but.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall, through you to the mover. Thank you for moving this. I believe that this is, you know, some of the stuff we talked about asset management and stuff like that. I think with this beautiful, grand new theater, that I think we're going to achieve everything on one site, and just, you know, operational costs and everything else that goes with it. I think the more we can reduce the burden, I think it's received better throughout the community of not having theaters that are underutilized.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. James Reid, I think you have some information, or at least roundabout information for us.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Nuttall. I do have some information with respect to the existing agreement on the Five Points Theatre. So the city has a 15-year agreement with Pratt Homes and Pratt Development for a total of $300,000 that was paid within the first 4 years. The agreement started in 2018. It was set to expire in 2033, but then the council of the day extended that by 1 year because of COVID, because there was no programming in the facility. So our commitment to the city is until 2034, and the funds have all been received from the Pratt Homes and Pratt Development.
So that was about 300K?
Yes, Mayor Nuttall.
Yeah. So we have 13, 14 years. Let's call it 12 for fun, because it's easy, into 300K or 25K a year. And maybe I'm short. What was the original date?
Mayor Nuttall, the original date was 2018, and we have received all 300,000. It was an upfront payment. Yes. It was taking over the Meadow sponsorship from before. So we've received the money, but we've committed till 2034 for those naming rights.
So it's 16 years at not quite 20, $18,666. So that's the per year cost of that. Were there any other rights inside? Like, I know Arcadi sponsored the Urinal, believe it or not, and others did other things like.
Mayor Nuttall, I do not have that information at the top of my head, but we could definitely circle that back. There will be an implication into the interior as well.
Okay, so if we could get a compilation of all of that, Ms. James Reid, that would be fantastic. It doesn't sound like it's huge dollars. No offense to anyone who donated to that. And so I think that's less of a complication than earlier. I think originally there was a lot larger sponsorship agreement before that went away.
Mayor, all I have to say is I think just the fact that you even raised the question shows the community that might be considering sponsorship other facilities that we take it seriously, so it was worth flagging anyways.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Councillor. So I don't think that's an issue overall, unless we get some piece of information we don't foresee. Are there any comments or questions from members of council or committee? Sorry, seeing none, folks. I think this is, if we're going to go down the other route, this makes a lot of sense to me, because we're going to be sitting there with an asset that does not get used, right? And it's the only thing right now, and we still get complaints about it. Imagine you put a new pristine performing arts center in, nobody's going to want to go there. And so, like, I won't, I'm just being honest, right? So, yeah. Sell the seats with it. So I think, like, this is a realistic approach. It's 10,000 square feet. If we don't get $200 a square foot, then, you know, I'll be not happy. So that'll give you, what is that, $2 million or something like that, towards the 5 the council's just approved. I think that's a good path forward. So, well, look, you can say up to 5, but that guy's going to come back with $5 million. I'll take bets on that, and I don't gamble.
The pressure's on, Mr. Hughes. The pressure's on.
Okay. We're going to move from the comedy to the vote. So all those in favor of the amendment by Councilor Morales, and it's approved unanimously. That's great. So on the main motion, twice approved, or twice amended. And are there any last minutes anyone has? Councillor Kungle.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Mr. Hughes. Just one quick question about the financial framework for this, because I think I might be making an assumption. In the memo on page 3, it talks a bit about the historical financial framework for the 65 million. It's in the very first paragraph. It just talks about the framework was set at 65 million with an additional 10 million allocated for site-related risks, including unforeseen conditions related to soil, groundwater, and environmental remediation. And then we jumped to 75 million before this evening, where we moved 10 over for the galley seating and then 5 up to 5. So on the, if I make the assumption, do we still have a financial framework that sits behind that original kind of $75 million that has a proportion of that is kind of protective, if I can call it that, for any type of site-related risks? And is it still 10 million or has that shifted?
Through your worship to Councillor Kungle. So the $10 million site risks was rolled into the 75 million. So the design team, with the work that they've done, it was the original thought was $65 million plus 10 for the site. The way they've redesigned the building or designed the building and raised it up, we've eliminated that risk, so it was the $75 million. And then we're adding 10 million for the gala system, and then another $5 million for more space.
Thank you. No more questions.
Okay, I have Councillor Morales. Councillor Morales?
Mayor Nuttall, now that the amendment has passed and the motion as amended is pending, I do want to highlight it. We'll let staff do the proper process on the existing 5 points and seeing how what the dynamics of the market are. But if it does get surplus, and if it does get bought by, it's a very limited kind of buyer that might have it if they're going to use it as is or retrofit it, do leasehold improvements, it has a potential to further support council's strategic plan for a revitalized and reinvigorated downtown. Whether it's a post-secondary institution, this would be a great lecture hall, hint, or some sort of flex space with that, or maybe some sort of entrepreneurship, business innovation. There's lots of businesses that do fill this need beyond just public sector entities. All we have to do is look at the Markham area and that downtown Mars area. This is a really valuable space. So it's not just like surplusing it so we can get some money for it. There's the benefits of that spin-off effect that meets the strategic plan this council has worked so hard on. And then in addition to that, this just gets the project to be a little bit more feasible, which gives comfort to people like me. So I just wanted to make those comments on this.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. There's 2 of us in the room. I believe only 3 of us in the room, maybe 4. Well, could be 5 over there, that were here during the 5 Points Theatre that had a budget of 2 million. Then there was a fire that no one knew about when we bought it. I think we got some federal money, some provincial money, some local money. It was 6 or 8, Michael? It's a lost leader. So no matter how much if we get 300 a square foot, we're still losing 3 to 5 million. So it's a bit of a pain, but these unfortunately these things happen, and it has had a lot of incredible performances over the years. So, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just a comment. When we started out, Councillor Jim Harris moved a motion that when we first got to council in my first term, we felt there was a slush fund where if you were on the know and you had friends in politics, there was a fund, but it was actually the dividends of Electra. And I believe it was called like the Community Benefit Fund or something. But every time somebody come to council, that's where the money was coming from. And as new councillors, we could never figure out, like, because we were new to council, not new to life. And, we figured it out, and, Jim worked with the CAO Pros at the time, and we come up with a designated theater fund because there had been so much conversation about building a theater. That term of council, we actually voted to tear down the Fisher Auditorium as consultants had recommended that it would never be able to be restored and facilitate such a beautiful theater. And I remember making a comment that, we build rec centers for our kids that play sports and all that stuff, and this is the rec center for the theaters. Like, we build theaters now. And, it was a comment to try to get people to buy in that to have a whole community, you have to do, tip to toe for everybody. Well, tonight, and, the 11 members of this board of directors and council should be very proud. We've approved a new South End Rec Center in Councillor Hamilton's ward, and we've approved, hopefully after this vote, a theater. So it's nice, as a politician, you get accused of lots of, conversation and delay, and the people from the theater probably feel that way until now. And, truth be told, it's been a lot of your leadership looking at the structure of funding and meeting with the organizations and coming to a place that was actually viable where we could do it. Because it started off at the 160 million, and I just don't think that was ever a viable option for the city. And you've really, lived by what you said, and you said you were going to do this, and by a lot of the hard work, meetings, and probably pulling your hair out at times. And it's hopefully after this vote, we've actually accomplished something we said we were going to do. We built a rec center, and now we're building a theater. And I think we should all be very proud of that. And it'll be something that this council will be able to look back for many, many years that, we're doing what's right by the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other comments or questions from members of committee? Okay, well, we'll move the vote then. All those in favor of the Performing Arts Center? That is a unanimous vote. We will now move, I think, into... Nope, there's no more, right? Perfect. We'll do inquiries later, we'll do announcements later. Let's go into the circ list, December 10th. Any questions or comments on today's circ list?
Thank you. And just one quick maybe comment, and it's maybe more for the public. There was, I believe, a circuit list that talked a bit about the, thank you, A2-251210, the memo around the telecommunications tower at the Barrie Sports Complex. Just because in Ward 3 we've got the dome, and sometimes there's a misunderstanding, and we've had a previous telecom conversation in close proximity in Ward 3 that's historical. So I just want to point that is actually referring to the Springwater area complex, not the sports dome in Ward 3.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. You just said something. What were you talking about? Just now. We're going to take, I'm sorry, my mind is just blown. We're going to take a 10-minute break at 8:25, because that's when we're going to get out of here. Just before we do, I think it's important that we take note of some of the major changes that are happening this week. The provincial legislature approved the new boundary for the City of Barrie this week, which is, I'm going to ask either Mr. Prowse or Kelly if you can jump in, the number of acres that are coming into the city.
Meadow, I should have had my cheat sheet ready.
And I should have asked you beforehand. So
it's around 4,200 acres.
4,200 acres. So there's that's now been approved in the Ontario legislature, and it's on the north side, east and north and northwest side of Barrie. Has it got royal assent yet? Did it get royal assent today or yesterday? Or
Mayor Nuttall, I've checked the status update online. It doesn't show it, but my meeting with the province today, they indicated that it had. So I'm not an expert on the legislative process, but we expect that we will receive it shortly if it hasn't already been granted.
Amazing, thank you. So that's just the ceremonial piece. There will be a lot of work done by our staff on this over the next little while, folks. And so a lot of that will be led by Ms. Banfield, on the planning side, and her team are, Ms. Dimerton, your entire team is gonna have to be in there on engineering. But I think before I go to what the future is, that we need to recognize the incredible work that has been done to get us to this point. The industrial area that's identified, you know, I like to think that everything comes out of my mind, but it doesn't, and Michael will remind me of that. And Ms. Banfield, you are the person who's actually said, you know, this is the best land that's available for, and that's now provincial law, and that's now our boundary as of January 1st. Rebecca, you and your team were relentless, from the intergovernmental relations to the public relations, on making this happen. Obviously, the entire department, Kelly came in kind of 2/3 of the way through, and it went from being a bumbled idea to a functioning thing. And I just want to say thank you, because we don't take a lot of time to say thank you to each and every one of you for the work you've done. But I can confidently say the City of Barrie's land needs, job needs, are good through 2061, assuming that we don't mess up the planning here. And that's something that not a lot of places have. So you're one of a kind, and our staff, thank you so much. And I would thank Michael, but he'll yell at me tomorrow for thanking you, because he says I shouldn't, so I'm not gonna. And with that, we're gonna conclude. I'm a minute long, 8:26. We'll be back at 8:36. Thank you.